open. You want to wear tutus, you want to paint your nails, you want to play with whatever you want, you can do that. And he immediately gravitated to cars, trucks, police cars, emergency vehicles. So I think he
did try out the
he did try it out. But I think also thinking about my upbringing, like I identify as female, but I played with soldiers when I was a kid. When my sister was playing with Barbie dolls, I was playing with Ninja Turtles, and she was playing with whatever. I don't even know what the other girly things are because I didn't play with them. I played with I had a little carpentry with a drill saw. I used to make things.
Yeah,
and I think,
my daughter loves that.
yeah, and I think there is some element. I don't know. I feel like the nature versus this conversation, this discussion could be literally weeks long.
Yeah.
And I think there is some element of difference between men and women, but I think there's a lot of grey area in between. And I think a lot of times when people argue that there's nature versus nurture, we've talked about the fact that in dire situations men can lactate. If a baby needs milk, a man's breast will produce milk. And I think in situations that especially in social situations where there's a single mom or a single dad, they do take on these sort of traditional roles and sometimes take on a bit of the other role just because they have to. And going back to the toilet thing, if we're at, I don't know, a footy game and the women's line is too long, I go to the men's bathroom, and not because sometimes I feel a sense of pride because I can get away with it, but also I have to pee, and that's the only thing I'm thinking about at that moment. Is I have to take a piss. I'm not waiting in that line with 20 women. I'm going to go where there's toilet paper in the toilet.
Yeah. Oh dear.
And there's no one in there. They're all using the urinal, so all the stalls are clear.
Yeah.
So there's a sense of
Yeah.
practicality
Okay.
to
Yeah,
it,
that makes sense. That's interesting.
And I think, I don't know. I feel like it's sort of an endless cycle to think about nurture versus nature, sex versus gender, because there's so many things in between, even just within sex. People think there's just male and female. There's actually at least 3 other sexes that you can identify with. You think about intersex people who are born hermaphroditic. I think you just go back to just not be a shit human. Stop being a shit human
Right,
being,
yes. Yeah, good. Yeah.
So I probably digress. I had so many points. I was I got a point for that one. I think, I don't know. I think I've always tended a bit towards masculine behavior because I'm much closer to my dad than I am my mom. And I'm always the provider, or the idea of providing for my family is always something I just automatically go to. I struggle a bit sometimes with domestic duties because I could be at work making money or making sure we've got food on the table. So I kind of tend towards that element. But at the same time, I do feel quite proud to identify as a woman because there is a strength in that that's different than being strong as a male. And I think that there are, as much as some feminists try to deny it, there are some biological differences between men and women. I think the problem becomes when you turn those differences into qualifiers and you go, this one's different, so this one's better. This one's different, so that one's worse.
Yep.
And using it as a point of tension to say that one is superior to the other. Because I do think that typically and biologically, men have certain traits that are generally male, and there are some traits about women that are generally female, but that doesn't mean that they're not equally as strong. You think about strength, people hold men up as being very strong, but women push people out of their bodies. And oftentimes it's very painful, and why isn't that considered just as strong as a man being able to lift up a log? And or in some ways even stronger, it's just the qualifying of that difference that I think is probably the seed of a lot of the gender issues that exist between, in that tension between men and women. Saying that one is better than the other, on both sides, on, sort of this whole uprising of men's rights groups, and, equally on the feminist side as well, because there's infighting within feminists as well, because we talk about first wave, second wave, third wave, all got different opinions about how we're supposed to be women. It's does it really matter at the end of the day? Just don't be a terrible person. Stop making assumptions about people. that's much better. I'm sure I'll have more later.
I identify as a woman, and grew up in some ways a conservative household, and in some ways very much not so. My mum went back to work 6 weeks after I was born, and my dad was a police officer, so he was on night shift a lot, and he was the one that took me to like the maternal and child health nurse visits, and he was very isolated doing that. The women would always watch him and judge him. He used to cook dinner a lot. He used to pick me up from like my carer's place when he, was working, and he'd put my hair in a bun for ballet and stuff like that. He would let me play outside with him and do the work with him outside. And I'd sit in his car and go down to the tip with him and his mates and listen to the music. So, but my mum was very much pushing, the beautiful little girl, like curly hair, pretty dresses. And I think naturally, like, there's some part of me that loves getting into my masculine side and really, like, getting shit done. And, I'm still grappling with whether that is just masculine. Like, I feel like there is actually, like, in terms of birth, women get shit done, like we birth that child, like, no matter how we have to do it, if it ends up, being cesarean or whatever, we do what we need to do. So, I'm still trying to get my head around, who said these were masculine qualities, who said these were feminine qualities, and why, why did we decide that? But personally, like, I think, a lot for me has been about my conditioning. I started modelling when I was 15, so I had to, and I fit into that look very much, and I had to do that in order to make money. So there's a lot of layers and layers of conditioning. So when I enjoy putting on makeup, I'm not 100% sure whether that's something inside of me that I enjoy, or whether it's because I've been taught to enjoy it. But yeah, I feel like I grew up in a household where I got the opportunity to see both masculine and feminine. My mum taught me how to cook, taught me how to do all the things that, women are supposed to do. And I am grateful for that, like you are, because I know how to clean a house better than anyone can clean a house. I can cook, I'm very confident in that, and my brothers not so much. I've got 2 younger brothers, and they often come to me for help with things. But I can still put together IKEA furniture, and I can plant plants and, keep them growing, and I can go out and get money. Our son's from a previous relationship, and, I had to, his father sort of was kind of not there for 3 months of when we split up, and I had to provide for our son and just, really step into both roles. And he doesn't see his dad all that often, so I feel like sometimes I have to step into that as well. He's got one as well, so
That was the other point I was going to make.
you go.
I was just going to say that, like, because he doesn't see his dad very much. I think, like, out of all the adults, he identifies with me the most, and I'm quite practical and quite like,
And so
it's bedtime now. You're not. This is not negotiable. Like, I'm much more sort of, I guess, male in that way, and like I think he identifies with that. But like, he looks at me and he sees a woman, and I think when he was a bit younger, he got a bit confused because I think, will look at me and go,
I don't know that he really thought about it that
I don't.
much.
He might have thought about it for a split second, but I think he got over it really quickly and was like, okay, this is just my other mum.
There can be another stereotype, because I'm thinking of us. I'm the one that is the bad guy, and he's the fun. So that seems like a stereotype. Maybe it works in different. Because you'd say, wait till your father gets home, because you're like, I can't deal with these kids. So the dad lays the law, but in this here, and I've seen other men, they're the fun ones.
And I think a lot of times when I, put on a certain face, he knows it's business. Like, I'm not taking any more of this shit. Like,
And I think that makes him feel safe as well. He really likes boundaries and structure, so I think he often goes to her for that. Whereas I think I probably.
You can do both.
Yeah.
We both try to do
I
both.
have to boundaries don't come naturally to me. You know, I have been taught to people please, and you know, do make sure that the other person is happy first. My needs always come second. So I'm learning to create boundaries now, and I feel like my dad was the emotional one. I rarely saw my mum cry. She had, you know, she would yell and scream and get, you know, impassioned about things. But my dad would tear up at like a Kleenex ad or something like that. Like he was, you know, and she would make fun of him as well. So him being vulnerable was made fun of. And I always tended to, like when I would date men before dating women, I always tended to go for more feminine men in, you know, various kind of ways. So I think for me, it's about, and you know, in the work that I do as well, it's about balancing that masculine and feminine, you know, energy. And I feel like when I'm happiest is when I've got both of those aspects in balance. You know, so I know I present quite feminine on the outside, but I think that's partially to balance out, you know, all of the controlling kind of behaviours that I tend to lean into, which is, you know, my idea of what that kind of masculine is, like, you know, providing and, you know, organising and, you know, being the boss kind of thing, you know, like that traditional thing, you know. But then I think with our son as well, he I feel like he has quite a good balance. Like I have tried to teach him to talk about his feelings, to allow him to have those emotions, but also encourage him to do the things that, you know, he wants to do that are typically masculine as well. You know, sometimes he just wants to wrestle, and we both get into that, and, you know, have a big pillow fight and throw him around on the bed. And, you know, especially when there's like when we're watching a footy match or something, he's really into football now, and he just like gets so like revved up, the adrenaline, and I guess the testosterone, you know, kicks in, and that's not something that we understand too much. I know women have some testosterone, but it's like it's just not as much. So we kind of see this go, whoa, don't know what to do with this. Let's take him outside and run around outside or have a kick with the footy, you know. And then so I feel like there are some biological differences that I feel like I personally don't have a great grasp on what those are, but, you know, I feel like it's a hormonal, maybe primal things that, you know, are built in, but we still haven't let go of. We haven't evolved enough to go, oh, we may not necessarily need those so much anymore. Like that, you know, that flight response where, and we're in that stress mode, but we don't necessarily need, there's no tigers coming out now, you know, like it's, you know, if your co-workers said something to you, it's not actually a tiger. We don't need to like jump into that, you know, stress state. But I feel like for me, it comes back to raising a good human. So I try to think about the things that I say to him and, you know, make sure that I would say the same things to a girl. But encourage him mostly to be kind, compassionate, and honest, and, you know, and be as much as who he identifies with as possible.
To support him. I think we do that quite a bit. I always think, would I say the same thing to a girl if they were doing what he's doing? And I go, yeah, okay, I would say that to her, so I should probably say it to him.
And he really loves being strong.
Yeah.
You know, that's something him. So you know, I encourage that because it's something that he's passionate about. You know, but you know, I try not to over encourage it as well, to the point where he feels that it's something that
it's
he
the
has
only
to
thing
be.
he can do.
He's and people have said to us that he's very good at expressing his feelings as well. So I think that was the other thing I was going to say. I feel like a lot of it is about our expectations too, and I feel like, you know, perhaps we think that women can't do certain things because we haven't had a high enough expectation for them to be able to do that. When women, you know, are put in situations, say single mum, where they have to do things, or they have to, you know, like, you know, their baby's in a car and they've had a crash and they have to live, you know, women can do it. And the same with men. I feel like sometimes we don't have higher enough expectations. That whole boys will be boys thing, you know, I feel like if we lifted our expectations, they would rise. And I feel, because I'm a primary school teacher as well, it's like, I can see, I've seen so many children, and I've seen what they can do when you lift those expectations and encourage them and tell them, you got this, you can do this. When you believe in them, then you know they can really rise to that expectation. Yeah, I feel like if we all had that nurturing environment in which to grow, to just be our best selves, then...
Yeah. And I think it's like what I missed out in saying, and you've reminded me, and that is having the 5 children, is that I'm so happy that they're thoughtful, caring individuals. And that's where I feel like I've done my job right. You know, everything else, there's problems, of course, but they're thoughtful, caring individuals. To me, that's the epitome of
Raising a good person.
yeah.
Okay, well, I'm the single mother. 6 girls. I come from 6 girls, 1 boy. The boy was the youngest. Very successful father, stay-at-home mother, who dad came from a very poor family. Mum came from a quite wealthy family. They were both only children. And I followed a similar journey. You know, I fell into, I've got a sister that's quite a successful photographer, and I went with her one day when she was working, and she was doing a job for a magazine, and they said, has your sister ever thought about modelling? And I'd only ever been someone that I loved boys. I loved them. It was all about, I was petrified of them, but I loved them. And that was sort of this big thing. And funnily, that's the thing that's eluded me in my life, raising my children on my own. Big disappointment with the male population, especially financially. And I work now. My work is with a lot of male, dysfunctional, functional, dysfunctional, functional, people in recovery from drugs and alcohol. And I become one of the males, and I have learned the most incredible things. They don't look at me as a sex object. Well, I'm 57 anyway, but they talk to me as if I'm one of them, and it's given me a really great insight, because I've been able to put the onus back on them, because a lot of them have lost their children. A lot of them are really disrespectful towards females. When they say things like, oh, the fucking bitch, I'm like, actually, I'm the fucking bitch that's raised my kids on my own, that's been through domestic violence, that's never had a cent child support, yet their father earns $6,000 a week, Maltese. You know, all these real stereotypes. And so I am very disappointed in males, but I love them dearly, because I know that as males they are not knowing where they fit in anymore, because women have become so dominant. And then when I recently did this incredible trauma therapy, and the woman took me back into, you know, it's the generational stuff, and all of a sudden I realised, hang on a sec, it wasn't just, you know, here's my father who was very successful and did provide, but we lost our mother when my brother was only 11, I was 17. So 7 kids left with incredible trauma. And I realised that we all thought we were just dominating women. There were 6 of us, we're all really loud, we had to speak over each other. You know, we frighten most males, you know, because we are sort of fairly independent and strong. And then I realised, hang on a second, you know, I knew these stories that, you know, my mum's dad died. He died of shrapnel wounds, but there's a lot of alcoholism in my family, and that's hence why I'm totally clean and sober. And then my dad's grandfather was an alcoholic, and, you know, mother's brother was an alcoholic, and there were stories of the wife on his coffin, you know, crying, begging him, and then begging the son, don't you ever drink. And I realised that was the men that I've attracted into my life, these men that actually have not been able to provide in a way to make me feel safe. And it wasn't the fact that I came from this dominating female family. It was that, I was looking to repair something or to find something in men that just, it was not going to, it did not exist. So yeah, I've really, really learnt so much, and I have a lot of respect in my work from both males and females, because I do provide them another option rather than just opting out, get pissed, get stoned, disrespect everyone. It is more about love and a connection. We want this place that's, that we can leave to our kids. And yet I've got a son who, is a performer, but has been overshadowed by the dominating alcoholic father, who he's been very close to, and yet my daughter rejected him at 12 and said, no, fuck off, your behaviour's terrible, I can't have it. And yet, funnily enough, she's turning 16 tomorrow, she's going to Thailand with him in a week, and I'm petrified, my God, because she's going to have to put up with him and his behaviour, and he really is quite unbearable. But the funny thing is that her as a female, I was at the pool last summer. We went through this stage where we'd be at the beach and she'd strip off, and she was like 13, 14, and I'd be saying, you can't. And then I realised she learnt that from me. I would get into the water at the beach and I'd take my top off, and she developed this decision that, if men can do it, why can't I take off my top? And so we'd be at the beach and I'd be like, I think you've got to put on your top, everybody's looking. But I was at summer at the pool, and I'm doing my laps and I'm going like this, and she's at the pool, at the public pool, and she's got her top off, and she's just like, and she's got these bosoms, and I'm like, and I'm seeing the lifeguard walking up and down, and I'm thinking, fuck it, I'm not going to ever tell her again not to do that she should be proud of her body, and we have created this scenario, and I know from the Maltese grandparents, put your shoes on, you're gonna, and I'm not just saying Maltese, because I love everything about the Maltese culture, but put on your shoes, you're gonna get a cold, you're gonna get sick, so there's all these constraints, from when they were young. And it's like, I've just learned, that's what I almost was doing with my own kids, telling them who they've got to be or what they've got to be. And, there is all these things now. And so I see the really macho males, or the males, the alpha males. And they've been alpha for a reason, and that is because they feel like they've lost control or they've lost power. And then there's the women that are doing that as well. And we've stopped being able to have friendships as males and females. It's usually defined by sex, and I see a lot of problems, especially with the whole, the sex thing and the pornography, this disconnect now that we have. And I know that I've been disconnected nearly all my life, and I want to have a proper connection that's not just about, that's the kind hand to hold. It doesn't matter if it's male or female. It's something that's, that provides security and safety. And I think we're just all so externalised now, both male and female. And I think that's really, a problem. And I see it for my son, who I stupidly a few times said to him, he hasn't had a girlfriend. And he loves women, he says he loves girls, whatever. He says, I don't need another problem. My daughter at 16 is on her second boyfriend. I took her to make sure she had, understanding about her body and sex. And I think her enjoyment of it is completely different of me at my age. I'm absolutely blown away with this next generation and how they are, and especially females, they're saying what they want. And that's why I do worry about, my son, because, I want him to be able to say what he wants and feel confident to say what he wants, and for it not to be shut down by this female voice, this overpowering which is, I don't think I am. I mean, I have a very good relationship with my son, but as I say, because of his father and his role model, and this is where my disappointment with males come, and it's obviously not with all males, but I am, the whole thing about raising my kids on my own when there's a man there that should have taken responsibility, it gives me the shits, it really does, because kids have two parents, and it is about who's there, and it's been exhausting as a single mother, financially. At 57, I've got no super, I don't own a property, but guess what? My investment has been my kids. But then, knowing that father is now going to marry someone